God, Mac, you got a lot of beef. Where'd you get all this beef?
Did you see my cows out front?
No.
Oh.
Oh.
Cool. You slaughter your own cows, Mac. Nice. Potatoes?
Better grab some while you can.
Mac's Gravy is famous. It's practically a food group.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Revenge of the 90s. Steve here today. I have a super cool interview with Patrick Sullivan, production designer, art director, set designer, has had an illustrious career in Hollywood doing many, many different things. And I'm going to put my journalism cap on in a little bit and grill him on some stuff. But first of all, Patrick, I just wanted to say thanks so much for your time.
No sweat. I appreciate you talking to me. It sounds fun. Sounds like it's going to be fun.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, we'll see. Oh, you reserve your judgment for after. But I wanted to, first just kind of hear from you in terms of your career, what's kind of how it's evolved, what's gotten you to this point, and give a little insight into just sort of like the day-to-day of, production design and dispel any rumors and, misnomers and stuff about the job.
About the job. I can tell you, for me, it's the perfect job. Off education and architecture and everything that kind of bummed me and disappointed me and disillusioned me about architecture was remedied by getting into film. So everything, all the creativity, all the ingenuity required, all that kind of nuance, it's all in film, whereas I felt in architecture, it was mostly conventionality. It was mostly everybody wanted what their neighbor had, and nobody wanted to really break any rules. Nobody really wanted to reach creatively. When I pursued film, I was elated when I found out what it really entailed, and I could apply everything I learned in architecture school and loved about design and creativity and art and drawing and sketching and model building and everything good and nothing bad, at least not for the past 31 years or so. All good. Which
has included big blockbusters, has included Oscar-winning films. What types of projects are you drawn to the most, I think? Like, is it certainly something that gives you maybe the blankest slate? Is it something that feels the most challenging? What drives you to a particular project?
It sounds like the easy answer, but I find if I'm willing to take on a project, I can love it no matter what it is. In my past experience, I think period films I gravitated towards those the most. I've done a fair share of those just because everything has to be considered. Nothing is an afterthought, and you could get really stung if you go into a room that was built in 1930 and you're shooting a film that's 1940, yet someone updated the hardware on the other end of the room and it's 2010 and they're about to shoot it. So it's every little thing. And it's funny, so many films are credited with being called world building, and I think every film is world building because every film is curating what the camera is going to see, and you are building that particular world for that particular film. Whether it is future, present, or past, it's always building the world in a very specific and methodical and well thought out way. But again, period films, I think, mostly are the most fun. Yeah.
I think one of the things that drew me to your background, obviously, other than Twister, which we will get to, is that I noticed that you've actually worked on both. You were the production designer for Twisters, film I loved, by the way. Cool. It was great, fantastic. Because we are big Twister heads over here on the show, so it was very cool to see it approached the way that it was a couple years ago. But I actually was curious, just, given that you were, in set design in the first movie, I would just actually really love to hear sort of the different, your experience on both projects, the differences, maybe like how things had evolved in what basically is like two similar worlds, if we're going to call it worlds again, and I'm really interested just like what you brought to it, 30 years later and how the projects differed and what was like really rewarding about doing Twisters.
I feel, to begin with, I feel like if I didn't get to design twisters, I probably would have been in therapy now and never recovered. Because when I heard they were doing it, and it was just very serendipitous the way it kind of worked out, because things aligned to give me, at least open the door for it, because a studio film of that scale, because again, the same way the first one was, it was Warner Brothers, Universal, and Amblin. So it's an Amblin property, even though Amblin has been around its heyday in the 80s with E.T. and whatnot, as per the logo, but it probably is a film that a lot of people wanted a chance at doing. And it managed to come full circle for me, and how I at least got in the door to meet with Isaac. And then I said, well, I can't mess this up. When I do my pitch, when I do my interview and my series of interviews, and got to keep bringing it more and more each time so that it never lets up, and they can't go, I can't imagine anyone else doing this but Patrick. So I gave it everything I had. And yeah, going back to getting the first film, I had just come to town in August of 94, and I came to meet a specific designer, Joseph Nemec, not knowing how to do it, just read about him, and he did The Shadow, and I love The Shadow with Alec Baldwin. And I just cold called him, and he was working on a film. And just that was very much by chance. He was doing a film with Jan de Bont that shut down. That shifted over to Twister, and I got a call because it also coincided with the fact that by sheer chance I got in the union very early, or I would have never even been in the running for it. So they needed a set designer, and Joseph remembered me. And I came from architecture like he did, and he saw my drawings, and he thought my style of drawing was very much like his. So everything fell into place. So I got on that, and next thing I know, I'm on, at the time, before pre-Marvel, pre-anything, that was the biggest film going. And it was still a trial and error on visual effects to figure out if they could even do it. It was cool. And I was only in LA a matter of months. And next thing you know, I'm in Iowa and Oklahoma, which was a blast. So getting that was great. And I stayed on all the way until wrap. So I got to see every bit of that film be made. And then flash forward 25 some odd years, at least word that it was being made, that sequel's being made. And I guess conceptually it felt like I wanted to make sure it didn't fall into the trap of a lot of sequels where, I hate to say, money grab is one thing, that's for the studios, but the idea is like, all right, we're making a sequel or a follow-up or something in the same universe. Doesn't matter. It's got to pay homage to the first one. It's got to understand the fans and the following and the sort of, I don't want to say cult following. It's a straight up legit big film, but it struck a chord with a lot of people emotionally and nostalgia and all that. So I knew that's really what it had to do. And I felt like I was the right person to do that, to really zero in on all the things that made that first film special and make sure that carried over, not repeated, not retreaded, but just felt like a sort of logical flow and continuation of the sort of the mood, the feeling, the atmosphere of that film.
Yeah, and I mean, you're talking about 20 some, almost 30 years difference in those two films. It's a completely different world of filmmaking at that point. I wouldn't want it to feel the same, but I'd want it to still embody the spirit of the first one. And I thought when I saw Twisters, I loved how tangible it all felt in the same way that the first one evokes a certain feeling about just like storm chasing, and I felt that this one gave me that same feeling of like, I think I should go outside right now and drive to Oklahoma myself. I really, really loved just sitting in that world for a couple hours. I really, really appreciated that aspect of it.
Excellent.
This, and in the same way that I did in Twister. So I feel like you certainly, being that you were involved in both, I completely understood how it had to bridge those worlds. So
Yeah.
I loved that. I guess one question before I get to the big one is, did you help build the house in the first one that they drive through where it's like is it Meg's house where it's all like twisty turvy, like destroyed during the tornado?
In the first one, the first film, you talk when they pulled Meg out of the house. It was
and it was all destroyed.
It was funny because we had a very comparatively small crew. If you look at the credit list of the art department on the first film versus the second, very, very small. And we had a Dan Ross, Chuck Parker, and myself, and Chuck was an assistant art director. Dan became an assistant art director. He kind of got bumped up. They all had way more experience than I did. So I was basically drawing like crazy. I drew a lot of the different things. That required a model build because that was on stage. We built the interior and then cut to the exterior. And that was a real house that we had permission to basically take down. So special effects rigged it up, cut it, and then held it up and then dropped it when it wanted to, and then the whole thing collapsed. But on stage, yeah, the drawings, it's been 30 odd years, but I touched every set in the film with drawings. Fitting out Wakita, there were the main street coming around, taking a right and coming down to her street, the Victorian house on the corner, that was a build because it was an empty lot and we just needed some kind of visual anchor for that. But yeah, the Meg's house interior was a collaboration between the construction department, Steve Callis and his crew, and the special effects department, John Fraser. Yeah.
Yeah, that one, you know, so many scenes from that movie stand out, but that in particular, just the scale of it, and you know what it still looks like 30 years later, right? That's some, you know, that's maybe one of the coolest probable I would say things about, you know, set design and production design is like standing that test of time, right?
Yeah.
You see like old sets from, you know, movies from the 60s or, you know, now the 90s being 30 years ago. It's you
That's
look
crazy.
at them, you look at it and you go, this is timeless. And Twister is really one of those ones that feels timeless to me. And the most maybe timeless aspect is what I finally want to put my journalism cap on, ask you the big J journalism question here. I don't know if you know this actually, but like there is this like sort of groundswell thing going on the internet about like how good the food looks in that steak and eggs breakfast scene at Meg's house. It has like its life of its own. Like legitimately, that scene on its own is probably the best food has ever looked on camera.
Yeah. Wow, that's saying a lot. There are a lot of films about food.
I don't say that lightly. I don't, because I look for that sort of thing, and holy cow, like something about the steak and eggs, the mashed potatoes, the gravy, the fresh lemonade. I need to know everything you know about that scene and the food and what it took to make it look like that.
It didn't take much, because a lot of times in any film that involves food, you have a crew member who is a food stylist, and they're part of the prop department. Because the rule is if an actor touches it, uses it, handles it, whatever, the unique part about it is it's food and it's being consumed. If you ever watch a scene in a film where people are eating, I don't know if it's very unglamorous, but they basically have a spit bucket. Because if they're eating and chewing, they can't just keep eating all day to shoot a scene and two people eating dinner. You can't digest it, so they get rid of it. It's sort of that, and I don't want to just ruin any of the glamour of it or the charm or whatever, but it really was just steak and eggs and a cast iron frying pan, and it was done practically on the stove. But off to the side, there's a table with the prop master with additional things, because they had to get the Shotzi inserts of the bubbling and the crackling and all that. I think it's the close-up visuals, the like you said, the tangible element of the sort of the grease and the spatter and the bubbling eggs and the crust on the steak, and it really just romanticized it. It dwelled on it, a classic American breakfast, and I think that's what it was trying to drive home, a classic American Midwestern hearty meal to nourish these guys to go back out and chase some storms again. And I recently saw something with, it wasn't Jeremy Davies, and I can't remember the name of the actor, and he didn't like the food. Whether or not he didn't like steak or he didn't like eggs, he probably isn't going to make any friends, because he's one of the, I forget his name. He's the one that, he goes on a lot of appearances, and I think he recently said something about, it wasn't that good. Who likes not everybody likes their eggs sunny side up. Not everybody
I get that,
likes them scrambled. So it appeals to certain people. It certainly does to me. I'm a carnivore. I like it too. But I will say, doing the shot of the insert of the frying pan and all that was a dedicated shot. But after that, the prop master provided all the food off to the side that then, Propa sits as they fill the table, refresh the plates. And when she was grabbing hers and sliding the steak onto the plate and all that, was the prop master made that and just quickly brought it over.
Oh my God. Well, yeah. I mean, that's a great, you touched on it. I think that probably is like the most amazing looking home cooked meal, right? That I think that evokes that feeling.
And the big long table and the old house and the light
Yeah.
and the camaraderie and the jokes and the lightheartedness, everything contributed to it. I think that the food was the exclamation point, but everything, practically a food group slopping it on there and that kind of thing. The big wad of mashed potatoes. No, it was great. Yeah, and it was, from my recollection, was mostly real. A lot of food styling and commercials or whatever, or print art, and they've found ways to fake everything. I think everything there was real. It was all the real deal.
Yeah, I mean, I think Jamie Gertz is probably the best actor in that scene, that she has to look disgusted by what's going on.
She's
Yeah,
wondering what is happening around.
yeah, I
me.
mean, I don't know, man. If Philip Seymour Hoffman's throwing a freaking giant bowl of, or a giant thing of mashed potatoes and slopping some gravy on my plate, I don't know how I don't look so enthused to get that. Like,
especially if she's vegan or vegetarian or something,
Right.
and she's like, "Get it out of here!" But
I know it's and I think too that I always am a big fan of the, there's nothing I like more in a movie than like sort of the group coming together type of scenes. And that's certainly a scene where honestly the design of the set informs like the way that group comes together, where, like you said, the long table, and it's that shot, that moving shot around the table and the food. And what a cool sensory thing that you don't often get, where the sensory elements are what drive that feeling for the audience. That's rare to me. And I think that was very cool. But also in the second movie, so Twisters, I see behind you, I think, is that the sketch for Not My First Tornado behind you?
Yeah, that was a gift from the director. He got my friend Giacomo, who made the art for the t-shirt for me. He had that made, I guess, for all the department heads. So the director asked Giacomo, this great old dude. He was a storyboard artist. That was another me wanting to tie in the film. The storyboard artist Giacomo did the storyboards with David Lowery, I think, did the storyboards for the first film. And I just called him up out of the blue and I said, I need you to be a part of this film somehow. And I said, we need to do a t-shirt. And the phrase is Not My First Tornado. Can you come up with some ideas? And I knew he would just nail it. So he did a first shot, and then there might have been one little tweak to it. And that was it. And the director said, yeah, man, that's great. And he got the likeness of Glenn Powell. He captured that vibe. I still have a sketch caricature he did of Philip Seymour Hoffman, Bill Paxton, and Helen Hunt, and it's way in a drawer somewhere, of like them riding little toy cars as storm chasers, and it's somewhere. But yeah, did that, and then he did these, and it was a surprise because the director just said, hey, come by, I got something for you, and he gave me that.
I think that's that. I just love that, because that to me is one of those sort of elements of a movie like this that feels, it feels immediately feels lived in. The minute that shows up on screen, that to me just brings like this unspoken element that these are characters who have some life beyond what I'm seeing on the screen. I know that sounds, it's like it feels small, but it's not. That's such a key element, like that's the thing that just builds that without having to do anything else. And I just love that. I need to get a shirt of that. So
figured you'd have one by now. So
no, you would think I don't.
Well, I see a lot of knockoff ones online. I hate to use the word knockoff, but certainly people, you got to appreciate that they're fans. And it's not like Universal and Warner Brothers embraced the idea of marketing the thing and made it, but I see it where it looks like it's a screen grab from the film. So the resolution's not there, the line work's not there. But I ended up actually, since I have the original art and I have no intention of ever selling it or making money on it, but I did make a bunch of them. And one of the main reasons was it was only called a t-shirt in the film, and I wanted it to be a baseball shirt. I just like the idea of a 3/4 sleeve, and it's only a prop in the film because the characters don't wear it. I think Maura Tierney holds it up and then Frenches it, and then you see him who wants a t-shirt, but nobody's wearing it in the film. I don't even think in the rodeo or anything. So it came out of the prop department responsibility. And I wanted like a maroon sleeve, and I know they made them in cherry, which pops on screen better, but I made like a few dozen of my own with the maroon. So
I love it.
If you send me your address and tell me a size, I may have one down in the basement somewhere. So
Oh,
I have one. And also
all right.
I may have, I don't know what sizes, but we always make, every department makes t-shirts for the crew. And like I was doing out of the art department for like the grips and electric and all that and special effects. We have one for the art department. So I'll try to find that one. And it's basically the Stillwater, the rodeo, that rodeo. I made that the front. So we have that as well.
Cool. Yeah, I would love that. I would love to see that. Even if you shot me a picture of the other caricature from the first one, I would love to just see the art of it.
Yeah. I'll try to
yeah.
track it down.
Yeah.
There it is.
Okay. Yeah. I think just a couple more questions for you, Patrick. I think, well, one, just going back real quick on the food thing, and I think you touched on it a little bit, but like what really is like the secret to making food look good on screen?
I don't know if they had to do much to make eggs and steak look good on screen, other than the cut of the rib. It's probably, I guess it was either a ribeye. I think it was a ribeye. So it was a big hunk.
It was a
of
big
meat.
one.
It wasn't anything refined like a New York strip or anything, but it also or a fillet, which would be boring. It had to look like Meg, her cows disappeared, and that was she took care of them.
That's right.
These things are walking in the yard 10 minutes ago, and I think that's really wanted it to be. It had to look carnivorous. It had to look like something like on the range and Western, and it looks like it was in the middle of a prairie at night being cooked on the griddle. I think that's what it was going for, and I think it nailed it in that respect. And it's farm food. It's middle America. It's blue collar American food, and I guess that's what appealed to most people who are a fan of the film. And the funny thing, storm chasing wasn't a big known thing. It didn't have a big following beyond the actual segment of people that did it. But now with Twisters, when it came out, the culture was so booming, and people became storm chasers. The same way in Top Gun, I became a fighter pilot because I just was so in love with Top Gun. Same thing, storm chasers. And most of the people we met, and we had no trouble finding storm chasers who wanted to be in the movie. But so we just tried to nail the heartland of America in any way possible, and the food was a big part of that.
What you talked about Twisters being like, I have to be on this project. At this point in your career, what are some of your like maybe white whale type things where you're like, what would, if I'm gonna, someday look back, and I'm work, I look at my body of work, what's something that you are looking for, to challenge you next? Besides the next Twisters that's coming out.
Yeah, you know what's funny? I almost feel like if they do make another one and they go another way, I'd be like, okay, cool. I've done it and I've done both, and who knows? Because it may be a different director, and they may have somebody that they want already that they've used, a designer they've used a half a dozen times. So again, everything worked out perfectly, and I had to really sell myself and sell my idea for the film to get it. But doing that again, it's like lightning in a bottle, that kind of thing. I get the idea of doing a big period film. It's just one that I know is floating out there, and I don't really pursue it or have any realistic ideas about it. But there was a book I read that I just love called Devil in the White City. About the serial killer in the Chicago World's Fair, and coming from architecture and loving the city of Chicago and knowing all the characters in them as real characters, because it's a semi-historical fiction, a non-fiction kind of hybrid. That would be great. But it's floated around as like a multi-part miniseries for Hulu. Scorsese's attached, Leonardo DiCaprio. But I know that there are probably a dozen designers who are possibly more qualified to get that project. But I would love it, and I know I would do better than anybody doing it. Just see how that works out, because I don't even know if it's ever going to see the light of that.
Well, I'll cut that audio out and send it around for people just to.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, I got you. I'll do my part. I'll do my part to help you.
Little blurb.
Yep, absolutely.
But I have collected a giant amass, just out of curiosity, reading the book 3 times.
Yeah.
And I've got tons and tons of research and reference, and started to model the house and all that, just for downtime, practice, fun, stuff like that. So, yeah.
Oh, I love it. I'll be watching that one then closely, because I have seen that one get stuck in sort of the development,
limbo.
abyss.
It's crazy. Yeah.
All right, last question for you, because I always like this, and you've mentioned a few things. What, in terms of like, from your productions, sets, anything, what are some of your most prized things that you've kept over the years, or if you're that kind of sentimental guy. About
You know,
your projects.
when I first started, there was always something I wanted to. What I liked to do when I was a set designer, working my way up, I kept a sketch from every designer I worked with because I like the sketch. I love the sketch, and it's a big part of my process. And I gravitated towards designers who use sketching as their idea because designers have all different kind of processes. Some are like tear sheet. They'll just like something in a picture in a magazine and tear it and then collage and do that. Other will do a thumbnail sketch, but then it's very crude and they can communicate beautifully and they rely on an illustrator or concept artist to help flesh it out, and their ideas are brilliant. Others build models. But I work with Bo Welch and I love his sketches. And I have one of his, Tom Duffield, who made me his art director, who used to be the art director for Bo. Larry Paul, who I did Escape from LA with, and he did Back to the Future, and he did Blade Runner. Jeff Beecroft, I did The Game with, and his whole process, he sketches everything. And Joe Nemec, of course, who did Twister. He did so many. I have Aunt Meg's art studio draw her barn, her art barn, which you barely see in the film. Mm-hmm. When they first pull up, she's kind of in the doorway reaching for something, and that's all of it. But we fit it out as an entire, because all those wind sculptures and blowing things were meant to be hers, and we found a local artist who did those, and we portray them in the film as her artwork. But that's not really through the edit of the film. It kind of went away. But I have sketches by all those designers, and that's what I prize the most. A long time ago, I took the Big Red Barn. I took a board because we gutted the whole thing and had to tear it down. But it was a real barn, and we restored it and then destroyed it. But I managed to get construction guys to throw it in one of their trucks coming back to California, and I had a board. It was just a 2x10 board. It had a lot of character and chips and nicks and dings, but it went by the wayside at some point. I don't know where that went, but and just sketches, I think, are really what it is.
Yeah, no, that's great. And also, last thing on her wind chimes, that scene where she hears the storm approaching and the wind chimes are going.
The tinkling,
Oh,
ding, ding,
man,
ding,
that's
slowly.
I think that's what maybe just activated my love of storms.
And I do too.
And you know what I mean? There's something about that impending, oh man, it's good stuff.
Yeah, you can feel it. The air changes, the barometric pressure drops, the wind switches direction, or just breeze kicks up or goes still. And when we were in the Midwest, we saw a lot of crazy stuff that, I grew up in Pennsylvania. We had electrical storms. We had lightning, thunder. It sounded like the world was coming to an end. But the cloud formations and the storms in the Midwest are something special.
Yeah, I always like in both films that the Twisters are portrayed as like living, breathing beasts. I think
they were
that's
monsters.
They were monsters, true monsters. Yeah, I think I may have mentioned this in our episode when we recorded it, but these feel like monster movies. And I love the approach to it that way, that you treat these as like monster films, and it totally changes your approach to it. And I love it. So. Well, Patrick, I really appreciate the time so much.
It's been great.
This has been awesome. I really appreciate it. I really, really value your insight on Aunt Meg's breakfast table.
Sure.
And of course your insight on your career, but perhaps most of all, you've helped illuminate, one of the internet's greatest treasures, which is Aunt Meg's breakfast. So,
did you reach out to Zemansky, the prop master? I don't
No,
know.
not yet. I
haven't. I have no idea where he is, but it's been 30 years. I've never worked with him since then. But I forget his first name is Jim. Yeah, it might be Jim. But Joseph worked with him, and I hadn't. Okay. They worked on The Shadow together.
But another film I love. Shadow is great, too. I will, I'm going to work my way through as much as I can, try and do a little oral history specifically of that. But I really, more than that, I really value your time, giving us your experience and your career. It's so interesting and, super cool. So I really appreciate it.
Glad to be here, man.